Hunt 'em Big with Steve Bartella is brought to you by Bush Hog, Easton, Wildlife Research Center, Millennium, Rage Broadheads, Reconics, Redneck Blinds.
As hunters, we are generally great at getting out there into the woods and scouting. And we get all excited when we find these great big rubs, those scrapes that are the size of the tabletop at home. This is exciting stuff. But if you really want to take your game to the next level, do not be content just with finding sign. Instead, always ask why. Why was that rub made in this location? Where was that buck going to? Where was he coming from? What are the odds of him doing this again during legal shooting like? The more you ask why, the overwhelming majority of sign you find in the deer woods, it's made after dark. The majority of deer activity occurs after dark, therefore that's when the majority of sign is going to be left. You really need to use the best weapon we have. The best weapon we have is this right here. We have the power to analyze situations. Use this weapon to its fullest by analyzing. Why was the sign made here? Who do we think it was made by? Where was he coming from? Where is he going to? What are the odds of it happening again? And what are the odds of it occurring during legal shooting hours? You do that, you're that much more further ahead. When it comes to rubs, there are so many myths about rubs, it's not even funny. I have heard the most ridiculous things you've ever imagined. I heard one expert talk about how territorial rubs mark the edges of the buck's boundary, and once every 3 days he's going to go ahead and revisit all those rubs, patrolling it. Baloney. Lots of times there aren't rub lines. Lots of times there just aren't all these different classifications of rubs. What a rub tells you, first and foremost, a buck was here. A buck was in this location, rubbed his antlers on this tree. Next, the size of it can be somewhat indicative. If it's a good size rub, that also happens to be absolutely trashed. Pretty safe bet that was a mature deer that did that. If it's a smaller rub that's just shined up a little bit, you have no idea whether it was a mature buck or a 1.5-year-old buck. But if that small rub happens to be just twisted and torn and ripped to snot, you know what? That indicates to me that it probably was a mature buck. Which side the tree is rubbed on, is supposed to indicate where the buck was coming from, where he's going to. Baloney. I have seen so many bucks walk around a tree before they ever make a rub. Okay, just go ahead and ask yourself, why was this rub in this location? Where was he coming from? Where was he going? Does the size of that rub or the level of damage done to it indicate that it might be a mature buck? And then look for track size. If you can find a great big old track, you know what? Odds are it was a mature buck. And that track will also tell you what direction he was going. Okay, as it comes to scrapes, the overwhelming majority of scrapes out in the deer woods are essentially useless for hunting. Again, all they tell you is that a mature buck was here. The overwhelming majority are made and never revisited again. What you want to find for hunting is you want to find those scrapes that are consistently tended and are tended during legal shooting hours. How do you do that? You get out there in the spring. You find those great big scrapes with that bold-shaped appearance, and it's real easy to tell that it's been hit by a bunch of different bucks. Okay, or one buck repeatedly. Next, back in cover. If it is back in cover, the odds of him visiting it during legal shooting hours are so much higher, and then you wait. You wait for that last week of peak scrape phase to hunt that thing, when the odds are the highest that he will visit it during legal shooting hours. You do those things and scrapes can work out really well for you. When it comes to deer beds, if you're finding a whole bunch of beds in an area of varying sizes, guess what? That's almost guaranteed a family group bedding area. Does, fawns, young bucks. Mr. Big tends not to bed with that family group. Instead, he beds off by himself. That's why if you find that 1 or 2 large beds that are within this area, that's a hint that might be a mature buck. And then you go ahead and you find a couple rubs there, that's another hint. And then look for the surroundings. Look at the surroundings. Mature bucks, they tend to follow the same traits over and over and over for bedding areas. They want to be on points where they can see, a knob on a ridge where they can see, a bench on a ridge where they can see, on top of that hill, just down the side where they can see, and they can use the wind to their advantage to cover their backsides. Okay, or the thickest, nastiest cover you can find. How do you predict that type of stuff? Every time you find that buck bed, squat down in it, look around, ask yourself, why in the entire area did this buck decide to choose to bed in this one spot? The more you ask why, the more you can predict what they're going to be doing on different properties, the more you can anticipate what they're going to be doing, and the better your odds of killing Mr. Big.
Hunt 'em Big with Steve Bartella. It's brought to you by Bush Hog, Easton Wildlife Research Center, Millennium Rage Broadheads, Reconyx Redneck Blinds.
One of the best ways to take your game to the next level is don't be content with just finding sign. Ask yourself why. This is the most powerful weapon we have right here. Use it. Analyze the situation. Try to calculate the odds in your head. Go for the high odds as often as possible. And you do that by analyzing it, asking why. The more you do it, the more your success is going to increase.